continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Foundation. Vincent Torres had built his life like a fortress, methodical, impenetrable, and designed to protect what mattered most. At 38, he owned 3 successful auto repair shops across Denver, each one a testament to his transformation from a troubled youth who'd learned survival on the streets to a man who commanded respect through sheer force of will. His hands, now calloused from honest work, had once known different kinds of violence. Growing up in foster care after his parents died in a house fire when he was 12, Vincent had learned early that the world showed no mercy to the weak. By 16, he was running with a crew that specialized in making problems disappear permanently. But a close call with a murder charge at 19 had straightened him out. He'd channeled his ruthless instincts into building something legitimate, though the old Vincent never truly died. He simply wore a business suit now. The night he met Rebecca Hoffman at a charity gala 5 years ago, he thought he'd found his missing piece. She was radiant in a way that seemed genuine, a pediatric nurse with kind eyes and a laugh that could light up a room. Her blonde hair caught the ballroom lights as she spoke passionately about helping children, and Vincent found himself captivated by her apparent innocence. What he didn't know was that Rebecca's sweetness was as carefully constructed as his own respectable facade. Behind her angelic smile lay a woman who'd grown up in a household where her mother, Patricia Hoffman, had taught her that men were resources to be exploited, not partners to be loved. Patricia, a former beauty queen turned bitter divorcee, had raised Rebecca with one clear message: secure the wealthiest man possible, then take everything when the time was right. Rebecca's father, Dr. Raymond Hoffman, was a plastic surgeon who'd lost his medical license due to a malpractice suit involving a patient's death, a detail Rebecca had carefully hidden from Vincent. Raymond now worked as a consultant for medical malpractice lawyers, harboring deep resentment against successful men like Vincent who reminded him of what he'd lost. The Hoffmans had immediately seen Vincent as their golden ticket. His businesses were thriving, his reputation was solid, and most importantly, he seemed genuinely devoted to Rebecca. After a whirlwind courtship, they married in what Vincent thought was the happiest day of his life. Their daughter, Emma, arrived 3 years later, a beautiful child with Rebecca's blonde curls and Vincent's determined chin. Vincent adored her completely, never suspecting that Rebecca saw the child primarily as insurance, another chain to bind Vincent to their marriage and ensure maximum financial gain when their plan reached fruition. But Rebecca underestimated one crucial detail about her husband. Vincent's love came with an unspoken contract: absolute loyalty in exchange for absolute protection. He would die for those he loved, but betrayal was an unforgivable sin that awakened the dangerous man he'd worked so hard to bury. The Hoffmans' plan was elegant in its simplicity. They would slowly position Vincent as an unfit father and unstable husband, building a case for Rebecca to gain full custody of Emma and claim the majority of his assets in a divorce. Patricia had connections in family court through her book club, which included Judge Helen Morrison's wife. Raymond's legal contacts provided insight into how to document Vincent's supposed mental decline. They began their campaign subtly. Rebecca started attending therapy sessions, creating a paper trail of Vincent's alleged verbal abuse and erratic behavior, all carefully fictional but professionally documented. She recorded conversations out of context, photographed minor damages to the house that she claimed came from Vincent's rages, and slowly poisoned Emma's relationship with her father by telling the child that Daddy was sick and might hurt them. Vincent noticed Rebecca becoming distant, but attributed it to work stress. He had no idea that his wife was methodically destroying their life together, planning to take everything he'd built and leave him with nothing. The perfect opportunity came when Vincent mentioned he was driving to Colorado Springs to look at a potential fourth shop location. Rebecca saw her chance to accelerate their timeline. Chapter 2. The Setup. The morning of March 15th started like any other. Vincent kissed Rebecca goodbye, hugged Emma close, and promised to bring her a surprise from his trip. He had no way of knowing that Rebecca had spent the previous evening making very different preparations. At 8 a.m., Rebecca called her father. He just left for Colorado Springs. It's time. Raymond's medical knowledge proved crucial for their plan. He provided Rebecca with a small vial of ketamine, enough to incapacitate someone without killing them, but sufficient to cause a serious accident. Rebecca had been slipping tiny doses into Vincent's coffee for weeks, making him occasionally drowsy and forgetful, laying groundwork for their narrative of his mental instability. But today's dose would be different. Rebecca had calculated exactly how much would be needed to cause Vincent to lose control of his vehicle at a specific location, a winding stretch of highway known for accidents, where a crash would seem completely natural. She followed Vincent in her own car, staying far enough back to avoid detection. When she saw him pulling over at a rest stop, feeling the effects of the drug, she knew the moment had arrived. Using a burner phone, she called 911. "I think I just saw a man force another car off the road near mile marker 47, she reported, disguising her voice. "The car that got hit rolled down the embankment. You need to send help immediately." The call would establish her as a concerned witness while providing an alibi for being in the area. She'd already ditched the ketamine vial in a dumpster miles away. Vincent's truck rolled 3 times before slamming into a cluster of pine trees. The impact was devastating. Broken ribs, a punctured lung, severe head trauma. When the paramedics found him, he was unconscious and barely breathing. Rebecca arrived at the hospital within hours, playing the role of the devastated wife to perfection. She wept in the waiting room, accepted comfort from nurses, and made all the right sounds about hoping and praying for her husband's recovery. But privately, she was calculating. The doctor said Vincent might never wake up, and if he did, there could be permanent brain damage. Either scenario worked perfectly for their plan. A vegetative Vincent would be even easier to control than a dead one, and would ensure continued access to his business assets through power of attorney. Patricia and Raymond arrived that evening, both wearing masks of concern that fooled everyone except their daughter, who recognized the cold satisfaction in their eyes. They'd done it. Vincent Torres, the man who'd never shown weakness to anyone, lay helpless in an ICU bed while they prepared to dismantle everything he'd built. Dr. Sarah Martinez, Vincent's attending physician, was cautiously optimistic about his chances, but warned that brain injuries were unpredictable. "The next 48 hours are critical," she explained to Rebecca. "If he wakes up, we'll know more about potential cognitive damage." Rebecca nodded tearfully, playing her part even as she silently hoped Vincent would remain unconscious long enough for them to complete their legal maneuvering. Patricia had already contacted their family court friend about expediting custody proceedings based on Vincent's condition, while Raymond was researching how to gain medical power of attorney for an incapacitated spouse. They had no idea that Vincent's street-hardened survival instincts were already stirring beneath the medical monitors and 4 tubes. The man who'd learned to fight for his life in foster homes and back alleys wasn't going to go down easily, even if his enemies thought they held all the cards. The Hoffmans celebrated quietly that night over dinner at Patricia's house, toasting their success with expensive wine. Emma sat in the next room, confused and scared about her father, while the adults who were supposed to protect her family planned its destruction. "Phase 2 starts tomorrow," Patricia declared, raising her glass. "By the end of the month, everything he owns will be ours, and that bastard will either be dead or wish he was." They couldn't have known that their incapacitated target was already beginning to stir, his mind sharp and his memory intact, ready to discover just how deep their betrayal ran. Chapter 3: The Awakening. Vincent's consciousness returned like water seeping through cracks in concrete, slowly, then all at once. He became aware of the steady beeping of monitors, the antiseptic smell of the hospital, and the dull ache radiating through his entire body. But he kept his breathing steady and his eyes closed, a survival instinct honed from years of dangerous situations where showing weakness meant death. Through the fog of medication, he heard familiar voices near his bed. Rebecca's voice, but stripped of the warmth he remembered. "Everything is going according to plan," she said with satisfaction that chilled him to the bone. His mother-in-law's laugh followed, sharp and predatory. He's too clueless to notice. Vincent's blood turned to ice as the pieces fell into place. The recent distance from Rebecca, his increasing fatigue, the subtle changes in how she spoke to Emma about him. It hadn't been stress or imagination. It had been deliberate. He fought to control his breathing as fury built in his chest like molten steel. These people had tried to kill him. Not content with simply leaving, they'd attempted murder and were now standing over his hospital bed, celebrating their success. The old Vincent, the one who'd learned that mercy was a luxury the weak couldn't afford, stirred in the depths of his mind like a hibernating predator sensing prey. The lawyers say we can have the power of attorney paperwork ready by Friday, Patricia continued. Once that's in place, we can start liquidating his assets. The shops alone should bring in close to $2 million. And the custody hearing, Raymond's voice joined the conversation, equally cold and calculating. Judge Morrison's wife assured me it's a formality, Rebecca replied. With Vincent incapacitated and the documentation we've built up about his instability, I'll have full custody within a month. Emma will never have to see him again. Vincent's hands clenched almost imperceptibly beneath the hospital blanket. They weren't just stealing his money, they were stealing his daughter. The child he'd loved unconditionally, read bedtime stories to every night, taught to ride a bike in their driveway. They were planning to erase him from her life entirely. The sound of small footsteps interrupted his murderous thoughts. Mommy, Emma's voice, uncertain and scared. Is Daddy going to be okay? Shoot, sweetheart. Rebecca's tone changed instantly, becoming the nurturing mother Vincent had fallen in love with. Daddy is very sick. But remember what we talked about? Sometimes people get so sick that they can't come home anymore. I brought Officer Kelly like you asked, Emma said quietly. Vincent's eyes nearly snapped open. An officer? Why would Rebecca need police here unless? Mrs. Torres? A man's voice, official and professional. I'm Officer Daniel Kelly. You said you needed to discuss some concerns about your husband's behavior prior to the accident. The final piece of their plan crystallized in Vincent's mind. They weren't just going to take everything. They were going to destroy his reputation completely, frame him as an abuser, an unfit father, maybe even suggest he'd been responsible for his own accident. Thank you for coming, Officer Kelly, Rebecca said, her voice trembling with practiced vulnerability. I've been so worried about coming forward, but after what happened to Vincent, I realize I can't stay silent anymore. For Emma's safety, Vincent had heard enough. As they moved their conversation toward the hallway, supposedly to spare Emma from hearing difficult things, he began planning. Not the emotional, reactive planning of a hurt husband, but the cold, methodical planning of a man who'd once made dangerous people disappear without a trace. They thought he was unconscious, helpless, at their mercy. They had no idea that they'd just declared war on someone who had never lost a fight when everything was on the line. Over the next several hours, Vincent remained perfectly still, listening to every conversation, every phone call, every whispered plan. He learned about the drug coffee, the staged evidence of abuse, the bribery of court officials. He memorized names, timelines, and details. Dr. Martinez checked on him regularly, and during one late-night visit when she was alone, Vincent made his first careful move. Doctor, he whispered, barely audible. She jumped, then quickly moved closer. Mr. Torres? Can you hear me? Please, he breathed, his voice weak but urgent. Don't tell them I'm awake. My wife. She's not who you think she is. Dr. Martinez frowned, checking his monitors. Mr. Torres, you've suffered a serious head injury. It's common to have confusion, even paranoia. Listen to me, Vincent interrupted, his voice gaining strength. My wife drugged me. This wasn't an accident. If you tell her I'm conscious, she'll find a way to finish what she started. Something in his tone made the doctor pause. She'd seen enough domestic violence cases to recognize genuine fear, and despite her medical training telling her this could be brain injury-related paranoia, her instinct said otherwise. What do you need me to do? She asked quietly. Keep this between us for now. Let me gather strength and evidence. Can you do that? Dr. Martinez looked at Vincent's charts, then back at his alert, calculating eyes. This wasn't the confused rambling of a brain-injured patient. This was the clear thinking of a man who'd uncovered something terrible. "I can give you some time," she agreed. "But if your condition deteriorates, or if I think you're in danger, I'll have to act." "Understood. And doctor?" "Thank you." As she left, Vincent allowed himself the first genuine emotion since waking up, a cold smile that would have terrified anyone who knew what it meant. The Hoffmans thought they were playing chess with a fool. They were about to learn they'd sat down across from a grandmaster. Chapter 4. Gathering Intelligence. Dr. Martinez proved to be an invaluable ally. Over the next 3 days, she maintained the fiction that Vincent remained unconscious while secretly monitoring his recovery. His body was healing faster than expected. The same toughness that had helped him survive foster care was serving him well now. During visiting hours, Vincent listened as his family revealed more of their plan. Rebecca had indeed been drugging him for weeks, but not just with ketamine. Raymond had provided her with a cocktail of medications designed to cause memory issues, mood swings, and disorientation, all symptoms that would support their narrative of mental instability. "The beauty of it," Raymond explained to Patricia during one of their bedside vigils, "is that even if he survives, the brain injury combined with the drug history will make him seem unreliable. No court will believe anything he says." They were thorough, Vincent had to admit. They'd thought of everything except the possibility that their target might be awake and listening. Emma visited daily, usually with Rebecca, and those moments were the hardest for Vincent. His daughter would hold his hand and whisper stories about school, about how she missed him, about how she didn't understand why everyone seemed so sad. Rebecca would watch with what looked like maternal concern, but Vincent could now see the calculation behind her eyes. "Daddy, I had a bad dream," Emma whispered during one visit when Rebecca stepped out to talk with Patricia. "I dreamed that you went away and never came back, and Mommy said it was because you didn't love me anymore." Vincent's heart shattered. They were already poisoning his daughter against him, making her doubt his love even while he lay helpless in a hospital bed. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. That night, Dr. Martinez brought him news that changed everything. "I've been doing some research," she said quietly, checking to ensure they were alone. "Your wife has been asking very specific questions about your prognosis, particularly about cognitive function and long-term disability. She's also been in contact with a lawyer who specializes in medical power of attorney cases." "What kind of questions?" Vincent asked, though he suspected he already knew. Whether you'd be able to manage your own affairs if you woke up. Whether there might be permanent memory loss or personality changes. She seemed very interested in the possibility of legal guardianship. Vincent nodded grimly. "She's planning to have me declared incompetent." "What else?" "I also ran some blood tests on samples we took when you first arrived." "Vincent, you had enough ketamine in your system to incapacitate a horse. No one takes that much accidentally." The confirmation of what he already knew still hit like a physical blow. "Can you prove it?" "The levels are documented in your medical records." "But ketamine metabolizes quickly. If someone wanted to claim it was administered at the hospital for medical reasons, it would be hard to prove otherwise after this much time." Vincent was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Then he asked, "Doctor, I need a favor. Can you help me make some phone calls without anyone knowing?" Dr. Martinez hesitated. "What kind of calls?" "I need to contact some old friends. People who can help me investigate my wife's background and her family's." "Vincent, if you're thinking about doing something illegal." "Nothing illegal," he assured her, which was technically true. "The illegal parts would come later. I just need information. Knowledge is power, and right now, they have all the power because they think I'm helpless." After some consideration, Dr. Martinez agreed to help, understanding that Vincent needed allies if he was going to survive whatever his family had planned. Vincent's first call was to Tony Castellano, a private investigator he'd known since his street days. Tony had gone legitimate around the same time Vincent had, but he still had connections in the darker corners of Denver's underworld. "Jesus, Vincent," Tony's voice crackled through the phone Dr. Martinez had smuggled in. "I heard about the accident. How you holding up?" "Better than my family thinks," Vincent replied carefully. "Tony, I need you to look into some people for me. Deep background checks. Financial records, criminal history, everything you can dig up. He gave Tony the names Rebecca, Patricia, Raymond, even the lawyer and Judge Rebecca had mentioned. I also need surveillance on them. I want to know where they go, who they meet with, what they're planning. This sounds personal, man. What's going on? They tried to kill me, Tony, and now they're going after my daughter. The line was quiet for a moment. Tony had known Vincent long enough to understand what that meant. I'll have preliminary information by tomorrow. Full workup by the end of the week. And Tony? This needs to stay quiet. As far as anyone knows, I'm still unconscious. Got it. Vincent, whatever you're planning, you know I'm in if you need backup. Vincent smiled coldly. I might take you up on that. His second call was to Miguel Santos, who owned a successful security company but had once been Vincent's partner in their teenage crew. Miguel specialized in electronic surveillance and had connections with people who could make life very difficult for Vincent's enemies. Miguel, I need eyes and ears on some people. Can you set up surveillance without them knowing? For you? Consider it done. What's the situation? Vincent explained, and Miguel's response was immediate and violent. Those fuckers try to kill you? Vincent, just say the word and they disappear. Not yet, Vincent cautioned, but I may need that option later. For now, I just need information and evidence. You got it. I'll have cameras and bugs in place within 24 hours. His final call was to Detective Lisa Crawford, one of the few honest cops he'd maintained a relationship with over the years. Lisa had been instrumental in Vincent's transition to legitimate business, and she owed him several favors. Lisa, I need to ask you about something confidentially. Hypothetically, if someone wanted to frame an unconscious person for domestic abuse, how would they do it? Vincent, what the hell is going on? Are you in trouble? He explained the situation, and Lisa's cop instincts immediately engaged. They're building a paper trail, she confirmed. Therapy records, police reports, witness statements. If it's done right, it's almost impossible to fight, especially if the accused can't defend themselves. What would you need to prove it was fabricated? Contradictory evidence. Proof the witnesses were lying or coerced. Financial connections between the accusers. Or, she paused, or you could catch them in the act of fabricating evidence. Interesting, Vincent mused. Lisa, I may need your help soon. Officially, just promise me you won't do anything stupid. Vincent almost laughed. Everything he was planning was stupid, dangerous, and probably illegal. But his enemies had made one fatal mistake. They'd left him alive. As Dr. Martinez helped him end the calls and hide the phone, Vincent felt the familiar calm that had always preceded his most dangerous moments. The old Vincent was fully awake now, and the Hoffmans were about to learn why mercy was a luxury he'd never been able to afford. Chapter 5, The Web Titans. Tony's preliminary report arrived faster than expected, delivered by Dr. Martinez, who'd agreed to serve as Vincent's covert communication channel. What he read made his blood run cold, not from fear, but from pure, crystalline rage. The Hoffmans had done this before. Rebecca's first husband, Michael Brennan, had died in a suspicious car accident 4 years before she met Vincent. The police report showed brake failure on a mountain road, but Tony had uncovered something the original investigation missed. Rebecca had taken out a substantial life insurance policy on Michael just 6 months before his death. More damning was what happened after. Rebecca had inherited Michael's successful landscaping business, which Patricia and Raymond had systematically dismantled and sold within a year. The money had funded their comfortable lifestyle and Raymond's legal troubles. There's more, Dr. Martinez said quietly, reading Tony's notes. Your wife was married to someone else before Michael. Thomas Reed, a contractor in Wyoming. He disappeared during a camping trip 3 years into their marriage. Body was never found, but Rebecca inherited everything through a will that was suspiciously convenient. Vincent stared at the ceiling, processing the information. His wife wasn't just unfaithful, she was a serial killer. And Emma, his precious daughter, was living with these monsters. The surveillance Miguel had installed was already paying dividends. Audio recordings from the Hoffman house revealed their ongoing plans with chilling clarity. Vincent's recovery is taking too long. Patricia's voice came through the hidden microphone in her living room. We need to accelerate the timeline. The doctors are saying he might wake up soon, Rebecca replied, her voice tense. If he does, everything falls apart. Not necessarily, Raymond interjected. I still have some medical connections. If Vincent has a relapse, another brain bleed maybe, it would be unfortunate but not unexpected. Vincent's hands clenched as he listened to them plan his murder with the casual tone of people discussing dinner plans. What about Emma? Rebecca asked. She's been asking too many questions about when Daddy is coming home. We'll handle Emma, Patricia said coldly. Children are resilient. She'll forget about him eventually. That night, Emma visited with Rebecca, as usual, but this time Vincent was ready. Dr. Martinez had equipped him with a tiny recording device that could capture conversations even when he appeared unconscious. Mommy, Emma said quietly, holding Vincent's hand. Mrs. Rodriguez at school says that when people get hurt in car accidents, sometimes it's not really an accident. She says sometimes bad people hurt good people on purpose. Vincent felt his daughter's small fingers tighten around his, and his heart broke at the fear in her voice. Oh, sweetheart, Rebecca replied, her tone carefully controlled. Mrs. Rodriguez shouldn't fill your head with scary stories. Daddy's accident was just that, an accident. Sometimes these things just happen. But I heard Grandma Pat and Grandpa Ray talking, Emma continued, her 6-year-old honesty cutting through Rebecca's lies. They said something about making Daddy go away forever. What do they mean? The silence that followed was electric. Vincent could feel Rebecca's tension through the air. Emma, you must have misunderstood, Rebecca said finally. Grandma and Grandpa love Daddy very much. They're just worried about him, like we all are. I want to talk to Daddy, Emma insisted. Even if he's sleeping, I want to tell him I love him. Of course, baby. Tell him whatever you want. Emma leaned close to Vincent's ear, her warm breath tickling his skin. Daddy, I know you can hear me. Mommy thinks I don't understand, but I do. I'm scared, Daddy. I don't want them to make you go away. Please wake up soon. It took every ounce of Vincent's self-control not to open his eyes and gather his daughter into his arms. Instead, he squeezed her hand just slightly, enough for her to feel, but subtle enough that Rebecca wouldn't notice. Emma gasped softly. Mommy, I think Daddy squeezed my hand. That's just your imagination, sweetheart, Rebecca said quickly. Come on, visiting hours are almost over. As they left, Vincent heard Emma whisper, I felt it, Daddy. I know you're in there. The next morning brought devastating news from Detective Crawford. She'd done some discreet investigating into Officer Kelly, the cop Rebecca had brought to create a police report. Vincent, this guy is dirty, Lisa reported during a carefully arranged phone call. He's been taking money from divorce lawyers for years, creating bogus domestic violence reports for custody cases. I can't prove it officially without blowing your cover, but I've got enough to know he's compromised. What about the judge? Vincent asked. Judge Morrison is clean, but her wife runs a book club that's basically a high society gossip ring. Patricia Hoffman has been feeding them stories about your supposed abuse for months, poisoning the well before any official proceedings begin. Vincent absorbed this information, adding it to his growing understanding of how thoroughly the Hoffmans had planned his destruction. They'd left nothing to chance, corrupting every system that might protect him. But they'd made one crucial error. They assumed that Vincent Torres, successful businessman and devoted father, was all there was to know about him. They had no idea about the dangerous man he'd been before, or the lethal skills he could still access when everything he loved was threatened. That evening, Miguel called with an update that changed everything. Vincent, you need to hear this. Miguel's voice was tight with urgency. We caught them planning your murder. It's happening tomorrow night. The recording was crystal clear. Raymond explaining how he could access the hospital's drug storage, Patricia providing alibis, and Rebecca agreeing to be present when Vincent took a turn for the worse. They're planning to inject you with potassium chloride, Miguel continued. It'll stop your heart, and with your existing injuries, it'll look like natural complications. Vincent closed his eyes, feeling the familiar cold calm settle over him. The time for gathering intelligence was over. Tomorrow night, the Hoffmans would come to finish what they'd started. They had no idea that their intended victim would be ready for them. Miguel, Vincent said quietly. Remember what you offered about making people disappear? Of course. I may need that option. But first I want them to suffer. All of them. What do you need? Vincent smiled, and it was the cold, predatory expression that had once made dangerous men fear him. I need to die tomorrow night, and then I need to come back from the dead. Chapter 6. The Resurrection. Dr. Martinez's hands shook as she prepared the cocktail of drugs Vincent had requested. This is insane, she whispered. If we miscalculate even slightly, you could actually die. Trust me, Vincent replied, his voice calm despite the magnitude of what they were planning. I've survived worse odds than this. The plan was elegantly simple. When the Hoffmans came to murder him tomorrow night, Vincent would already appear to be dead. A careful combination of medications would slow his heart rate and breathing to virtually undetectable levels, while maintaining enough brain function for him to remain conscious and aware. To anyone without sophisticated monitoring equipment, he would appear to have flatlined. Miguel had positioned his surveillance team throughout the hospital, ready to record everything. Tony had backup plans in place to protect Emma once the operation began. And Detective Crawford was standing by with warrants she couldn't officially execute until they had concrete evidence of attempted murder. The timing has to be perfect, Dr. Martinez explained, checking Vincent's charts one final time. I can keep you under for maybe 2 hours maximum. Any longer, and there could be permanent damage. 2 hours is all I need, Vincent assured her. Once they think I'm dead, they'll reveal everything. Guilt makes people confess, and arrogance makes them brag. The drugs began taking effect as the sun set outside Vincent's window. His heart rate slowed, his breathing became shallow, and the monitors began showing the flatline pattern that would convince his family he'd finally succumbed to his injuries. At 9:47 p.m., the alarms began sounding. Rebecca arrived within minutes, having been coincidentally in the hospital cafeteria when Vincent took his turn for the worse. Her performance was Oscar-worthy. Tears, desperate pleas for the doctors to save him, the perfect image of a devastated wife. But Vincent, floating in a state of conscious near-death, heard the satisfaction beneath her sobs. Raymond arrived next, playing the grieving father-in-law, while secretly checking to ensure Vincent was truly gone. His medical training made him more thorough than the others, but even he was convinced by the carefully orchestrated scene. Patricia came last, bringing Emma despite the late hour. I wanted to say goodbye, she explained to Dr. Martinez, who played her part perfectly, looking appropriately sympathetic while the hidden cameras recorded everything. Daddy. Emma's voice was small and broken as she approached the bed. Daddy, please don't be dead. I need you to come back. Through his medicated haze, Vincent felt his daughter's tears falling on his hand. The urge to comfort her was overwhelming, but he forced himself to remain still. This was for her, to protect her from the monsters who'd been masquerading as family. He's gone, sweetheart, Rebecca said, her voice carefully modulated between grief and relief. Daddy was very sick, and now he's at peace. But I felt him squeeze my hand yesterday, Emma protested. He was trying to tell me something. That was just your imagination, Patricia said firmly. Sometimes when we love someone very much, we imagine things that aren't real. As the family gathered around his corpse, Vincent listened to their true feelings emerge. What happens now? Rebecca asked quietly, thinking Emma couldn't hear. Now we wait for the life insurance to pay out, Patricia replied. $2 million plus the businesses. You'll be set for life. And Emma will adjust. Children are resilient. But Emma wasn't adjusting. Vincent could hear her quiet sobs, could feel her small hand holding his with desperate hope. His daughter knew, with the intuition that children possess, that something was wrong with this picture. Mommy, Emma whispered, why don't you seem sad? When Grandpa Torres died, you cried for days. But now you just seem different. The silence that followed was telling. Rebecca struggled for an answer that would satisfy a 6-year-old's logic without revealing too much. I'm sad inside, baby, she finally said. Sometimes grown-ups show sadness differently. But Grandma Pat is smiling, Emma observed with devastating honesty. And Grandpa Ray keeps looking at his watch like he wants to leave. Vincent almost smiled despite everything. His daughter was sharper than the Hoffmans had given her credit for. She was seeing through their performance, even when the hospital staff believed it completely. As the night wore on, the family's guard began to drop. They spoke more freely, believing Vincent was truly gone and Emma was too young to understand the significance of what she was hearing. "The lawyer will handle the estate proceedings," Raymond told Rebecca. "With the power of attorney paperwork we prepared, it should be straightforward." "What about the police investigation into the accident?" Rebecca asked. "Officer Kelly has already filed his report," Patricia assured her. Vincent was clearly unstable, probably suicidal. "The accident will be ruled as such, which actually works better for the insurance claim than if it appeared to be our fault." Vincent's blood would have boiled if he weren't already chemically suppressed. They'd thought of everything, planned for every contingency. Except one. At exactly 11:30 p.m., Dr. Martinez made her announcement. "I'm sorry, but I need to ask the family to step out while we prepare Mr. Torres for the morgue. It's hospital protocol." As they filed out, Emma pulled away from Rebecca's hand and ran back to Vincent's bedside. "I love you, Daddy," she whispered, pressing her face close to his ear. "And I know you love me too. I don't care what they say. You're not really gone. You're going to come back and save me, aren't you?" She kissed his forehead gently, and in that moment, Vincent knew that everything he was about to do would be worth it. His daughter believed in him, even when the rest of the world thought he was dead. As soon as the family was out of earshot, Dr. Martinez began administering the reversal drugs. Vincent's heart rate slowly climbed back to normal levels, his breathing deepened, and his consciousness fully returned. "How do you feel?" she asked anxiously. "Like I've been dead," Vincent replied hoarsely, "but very much alive. Do we get everything?" Miguel's voice came through the hidden communication device. "Every word, every expression, every tell. We got them cold, Vincent. Murder, conspiracy, insurance fraud, child endangerment. Enough to put them away for decades." "Good," Vincent said, sitting up slowly as feeling returned to his extremities. "But prison is too easy. They try to destroy my family, poison my daughter against me, and steal everything I've built. They wanted to erase Vincent Torres from existence." He looked at Dr. Martinez with eyes that now held no trace of the injured, helpless patient she'd been treating. "It's time to show them what Vincent Torres looks like when he stops playing dead. The old Vincent, the one who'd learned that sometimes the only justice available was the kind you made yourself, was fully awake now. And the Hoffmans were about to discover that some people were far more dangerous after you try to kill them. Chapter 7. Rising from the Dead. Vincent's death unleashed a flurry of activity from the Hoffmans that Miguel's surveillance network captured in devastating detail. Within hours of leaving the hospital, they were already dividing his assets like vultures over a corpse. From his hidden position in Dr. Martinez's office, Vincent watched the feeds with Tony and Miguel. The three men had reunited for the first time in 20 years, brought together by the kind of betrayal that demanded the old rules. "Look at this shit," Tony muttered, watching Patricia and Raymond celebrate with expensive champagne in their living room. "They're not even pretending to mourn." On another screen, Rebecca was already meeting with the estate lawyer, presenting forged power of attorney documents and a will that had mysteriously appeared after Vincent's death, a will that left everything to her and specifically excluded his brothers from his former crew, the only people who might have contested it. But the most damning footage came from Emma's bedroom, where Rebecca thought she was having a private conversation with her daughter. "Mommy, when is Daddy's funeral?" Emma asked, clutching the teddy bear Vincent had given her for her last birthday. "Soon, sweetheart. But you need to understand something important. Daddy wasn't the man we thought he was. He was sick in his mind, and sometimes he did bad things." "That's not true," Emma protested. "Daddy never did bad things. He was nice to me." Rebecca's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing cold frustration. "Emma, you're too young to understand. Adults know things that children don't. Daddy was dangerous, and it's better that he's gone." Vincent's hands clenched as he watched his wife systematically poison his daughter's memories of him. But Emma, bless her brave little heart, wasn't buying it. "You're lying," Emma said with the devastating honesty of childhood. And I don't think Daddy is really dead. I think he's coming back. Rebecca's face went white. What do you mean? Of course he's dead. You saw him in the hospital. Dead people don't squeeze hands, Emma replied simply. And dead people don't have dreams. I dreamed about Daddy last night, and he told me to be brave because he was going to fix everything. The silence that followed was electric. Rebecca stared at her daughter with something approaching fear, as if the child's intuition might somehow resurrect Vincent through sheer will. Dreams aren't real, Emma, Rebecca said finally. Daddy is gone, and you need to accept that. No, Emma said with quiet defiance. Daddy always keeps his promises, and he promised to protect me. Watching his daughter's courage gave Vincent the final piece of resolve he needed. Emma believed he would come back for her, and he wouldn't let her down. Phase 1 starts tonight, Vincent told his assembled team. Miguel, I need you to arrange a very special delivery to the Hoffman house. Tony, you're going to help me pay a visit to Officer Kelly. And Dr. Martinez, you're going to have a very interesting conversation with the insurance investigators. The plan Vincent had crafted was surgical in its precision and devastating in its scope. He wouldn't just expose the Hoffmans. He would systematically destroy every aspect of their lives while making them understand exactly what they'd awakened. At 2 a.m., Officer Kelly was leaving a bar where he'd been celebrating his latest payoff when he found Vincent Torres waiting by his patrol car. The corrupt cop's face went white as he stared at a dead man. Impossible, Kelly stammered, his hand instinctively moving toward his weapon. I wouldn't, Vincent said calmly, and something in his tone froze Kelly's hand. You're going to listen very carefully to what I have to say. Vincent had learned long ago that the most effective intimidation came not from threats, but from absolute certainty of consequences. He spoke quietly, matter-of-factly, explaining exactly what would happen to Kelly's career, his pension, his family's safety, and his physical well-being if he didn't immediately correct every false report he'd filed about Vincent. But they said you were dead, Kelly whispered. Do I look dead to you? Vincent asked, stepping closer. I know about the Hoffman payoffs, Daniel. I know about every dirty report you've filed for the last 5 years. Tomorrow morning, you're going to call Detective Crawford and confess everything. Or I'm going to make sure your wife learns about your gambling debts and your girlfriend in Aurora. Kelly's face crumpled. The confident corruption evaporated, leaving just a scared man who'd made terrible choices. What do you want me to do? Exactly what I tell you. And if you even think about warning the Hoffmans. Vincent's smile was arctic. Let's just say, I know people who make problems disappear permanently. While Vincent was handling Kelly, Miguel was implementing his own part of the plan. This special delivery to the Hoffman house was a gift basket with an unusual addition, high-end surveillance equipment disguised as innocent household items. A picture frame with a hidden camera, a clock with audio recording capability, and a decorative plant pot that could monitor all electronic communications in the house. But more importantly, the gift basket came with a card from your loving son-in-law. I'll be seeing you soon. Vincent. Patricia found the basket on their doorstep the next morning and immediately called Rebecca in panic. This isn't possible. Rebecca's voice shook through the recorded phone call. He's dead. We saw him die. Then explain the card. Patricia shrieked. Explain how a dead man sent us a gift basket. It has to be some kind of mistake. Maybe the delivery company mixed up the orders. But doubt was creeping into their voices, and doubt was the first step toward the complete psychological destruction Vincent had planned. Dr. Martinez, meanwhile, was having her conversation with the insurance investigators, a conversation that revealed the ketamine found in Vincent's system, the suspicious timing of the accident, and the unusual behavior of his family after his supposed death. I'm not saying it was murder, she told the investigators with carefully practiced reluctance. But as a medical professional, I've never seen a family react to a death quite like this. Usually, there's more grief and less financial planning. By noon, the Hoffman's perfect plan was beginning to unravel. The insurance company had frozen the life insurance payout pending investigation. Officer Kelly had confessed to Detective Crawford, who was now armed with search warrants. And somewhere in Denver, a man they thought they'd killed was methodically destroying everything they'd built. But Vincent was just getting started. He'd spent years learning that the most devastating attacks came not from without, but from within. The Hoffmans had counted on his death to cover their crimes. They were about to learn that resurrection came with a price, and Vincent Torres collected his debts in full. Chapter 8. The Reckoning. The psychological warfare began at exactly 3:17 a.m. when every electronic device in the Hoffman house simultaneously activated. Televisions turned on by themselves, radios began playing static, and Patricia's phone started calling random numbers from her contact list. Miguel's handiwork was subtle but terrifying, the kind of technological haunting that made people question their own sanity. But the real message came when all the screens in the house displayed the same image, a photo of Vincent, very much alive, taken just hours earlier with a timestamp that proved he'd somehow survived his own death. The screaming from the surveillance feed was immediate and satisfying. "This isn't happening," Rebecca shrieked, frantically trying to turn off devices that wouldn't respond to any commands. "Dead people don't send photos." Raymond, his medical training making him more analytical even in panic, stared at the image with growing horror. "That's impossible. I checked his pulse myself. He was dead." "Well, he's not dead now," Patricia screamed, throwing a crystal vase at the television. The screen shattered, but Vincent's face remained visible through the spiderweb of cracks, smiling with predatory satisfaction. Emma, awakened by the chaos, appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "What's wrong? Why is everyone yelling?" "Go back to bed," Rebecca snapped, but Emma had already seen her father's face on the broken screen. "Daddy!" she gasped, clapping her hands together. "I told you he wasn't really dead. I told you he was coming back." The look of pure joy on his daughter's face, even through the grainy surveillance feed, made Vincent's heart soar. But it also hardened his resolve for what was coming next. Phase 2, he told Miguel through their communication link. It's time for them to understand that death was the easy option. What followed was a masterclass in psychological manipulation. Over the next 72 hours, Vincent systematically dismantled the Hoffmans' lives piece by piece, always staying one step ahead, always making them feel his presence without revealing his location. Their bank accounts were frozen when Detective Crawford's investigation revealed the suspicious financial transactions. The estate lawyer who'd helped them forge documents was arrested when Tony provided evidence of his fraud. Judge Morrison's wife discovered, through an anonymous tip, that her book club had been used to spread malicious lies, and her outrage led to Patricia being ostracized from Denver social circles. But the cruelest blow came when Rebecca discovered that her previous husband's deaths were being reinvestigated. Vincent had provided authorities with everything Tony had uncovered about Michael Brennan and Thomas Reed. The perfect murders were no longer perfect, and Rebecca's carefully constructed life as a grieving widow was exposed as a pattern of calculated murder. How was he doing this? Rebecca whispered to her parents during one of their increasingly desperate conversations. "How does he know about Michael and Thomas?" "It doesn't matter how," Raymond replied grimly. "What matters is stopping him before he destroys us completely." "How do you stop a dead man?" Patricia asked, her voice cracking with strain. They had no idea that Vincent was listening to every word, watching every move, anticipating every desperate plan they concocted. The surveillance network Miguel had installed was so comprehensive that Vincent knew what they were thinking almost before they did. The turning point came when Rebecca, driven by desperation and fear, made the worst possible decision. "We have to use Emma," she told her parents during what she thought was a private conversation. "If Vincent is really alive, his weakness is still his daughter. We grab Emma, leave the state, and force him to come to us on our terms." Vincent's blood turned to ice as he listened to them plan to kidnap his daughter. The psychological warfare was over. Now it was time for the kind of justice that didn't require courts or laws. "Tony," Miguel, he said quietly into his communication device. "It's time." That night, as the Hoffmans prepared to flee with Emma, they found their escape routes systematically blocked. Their cars wouldn't start. Miguel had disabled them remotely. The airport had their names flagged for questioning Detective Crawford's influence. The bus station was being watched, Tony's surveillance team. They were trapped in their own house with a 6-year-old girl, and the growing certainty that Vincent Torres was coming for them. The front door opened at exactly midnight. Vincent walked into the Hoffman house like an avenging angel, no longer bothering to hide his resurrection. He'd traded his hospital gown for black clothing that made him look like a shadow, given human form. Behind him came Tony and Miguel, their faces grim with purpose. "Hello, family," Vincent said pleasantly, as if he'd just returned from a business trip instead of rising from the dead. "I believe we have some things to discuss." Patricia fainted immediately. Raymond backed against the wall, his medical mind trying to process how a man he'd personally pronounced dead was standing in his living room. Rebecca clutched Emma protectively, though it was unclear whether she was protecting the child or using her as a shield. "Daddy!" Emma broke free and ran to Vincent, who swept her up in his arms with infinite gentleness. "Hello, sweetheart," he said softly, his voice warm and loving despite the Arctic rage in his eyes when he looked at the others. "Did you miss me? I knew you weren't really dead," Emma whispered, hugging him tightly. "I knew you'd come back for me." "I promised I'd always protect you," Vincent replied, kissing her forehead. "And I always keep my promises." He looked at Rebecca over Emma's head, and she physically recoiled from the cold fury in his expression. "Now then," Vincent said conversationally, "shall we discuss attempted murder, insurance fraud, child endangerment, and kidnapping? Or would you prefer to start with the serial killing?" The reckoning had begun, and for the Hoffmans, death would have been a mercy. Chapter 9. Final Justice. Vincent set Emma down gently and gestured for Tony to take her to the kitchen. "Uncle Tony's going to make you some hot chocolate while Daddy talks to Mommy and Grandma and Grandpa. Okay?" Emma nodded, understanding with a child's intuition that adult business was about to happen. As Tony led her away, Vincent's demeanor shifted from loving father to something far more dangerous. "Sit down," he commanded, and the three Hoffmans collapsed into chairs like marionettes with cut strings. "Vincent," Rebecca began, her voice shaking, "I can explain." "You can be quiet," Vincent interrupted, his tone mild but carrying absolute authority. "You've done enough talking. 3 husbands worth by my count." He walked slowly around the living room, his presence dominating the space. "Let me tell you what's going to happen. Detective Crawford is outside with arrest warrants for all 3 of you. Insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, and child endangerment to start. But that's just the legal system." Vincent stopped in front of Raymond, studying the broken man who'd helped plan his murder. "You're going to lose your medical consulting license, Raymond. I've already provided evidence of your illegal drug distribution to the state board. Your malpractice insurance is dropping you tomorrow, and every law firm in Colorado will know you're toxic." Raymond's face crumpled as his last professional connections evaporated. "Patricia," Vincent continued, turning to his mother-in-law, "your social circle already knows about your lies and manipulation. But that's just the beginning. The IRS received an interesting tip about unreported income from the liquidation of my first predecessor's business. You'll spend whatever time you don't serve in prison fighting tax evasion charges." Patricia tried to speak, but Vincent's raised hand silenced her. "Rebecca," he said finally, his voice dropping to a whisper that was somehow more terrifying than any shout. "You're in prison for a very long time. The authorities are reopening Michael's and Thomas's cases with the evidence I provided. 3 dead husbands in suspicious circumstances tends to establish a pattern." "But Emma," Rebecca started desperately. "Emma will never see you again," Vincent cut her off. "I have full custody documentation prepared by lawyers who actually passed the bar exam. She'll grow up knowing that her mother was a killer who tried to destroy our family." The defeat in their eyes was complete, but Vincent wasn't finished. "However," he continued, "prison is a civilized punishment, and what you did to my family was not civilized." Miguel appeared in the doorway, holding a tablet that showed financial records. "It's done," he reported. "Every account, every asset, every investment, all seized by federal authorities as proceeds from criminal activity." Vincent smiled coldly. "You wanted my money? You'll never see a penny. Every dollar you thought you'd stolen is going to a trust fund for Emma's education and therapy. She'll need help recovering from what you've done to her. You can't do this, Raymond whispered. You're not the law. No, Vincent agreed. I'm something much worse. I'm a father protecting his child from monsters who wore the faces of family. The sound of sirens grew closer as Detective Crawford's team surrounded the house. Vincent, Rebecca pleaded one last time. Emma needs her mother. You can't take her away from me. Vincent studied his wife's face. The face he'd once loved, now revealed as a mask hiding a predator. Emma needed a mother. Instead, she got you. But don't worry, she'll have someone who actually loves her. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Maria? It's Vincent. Yes, I'm alive. Long story. I need you to come to Denver immediately. Emma needs you. Maria Castellano, Tony's sister and a pediatric nurse who'd become close to Emma over the years, had already agreed to help raise the child. Unlike Rebecca, Maria understood that love meant protection, not exploitation. As the police flooded into the house, Vincent knelt down to Emma's eye level in the kitchen. Sweetheart, Mommy has to go away for a while. She did some very bad things, and she needs to learn to be better. Emma nodded solemnly. Are you going to be okay, Daddy? You seem different. Vincent's heart clenched. His daughter was so perceptive, picking up on the changes in him that others missed. He was different, harder, colder, more dangerous, but never toward her. I'm going to be fine, he assured her. And you're going to be fine too. Aunt Maria is coming to help take care of you, and we're going to have a good life together. Without Mommy, Vincent chose his words carefully. Mommy made choices that hurt our family. Sometimes when people hurt us badly, we have to protect ourselves by staying away from them. Emma considered this with the seriousness of a much older child. Like when Tommy at school was mean to me, and you said I didn't have to play with him anymore? Exactly like that, Vincent confirmed. Sometimes the people who should love us the most are the ones who hurt us the worst. But that doesn't mean everyone will hurt us. As Rebecca, Patricia, and Raymond were led away in handcuffs, Rebecca screamed one final time, Emma, Mommy loves you. Emma looked at her mother being arrested, then back at Vincent. If she loved me, why did she try to hurt you? The question revealed a wisdom beyond her years, born from trauma, but tempered by her father's love. Some people don't know how to love properly, Vincent explained. But you'll learn the right way. I promise. 6 months later, Vincent stood in his rebuilt auto shop, watching Emma play with a toy car while Maria helped her with homework. The Hoffmans were gone. Rebecca convicted of 3 counts of murder and sentenced to life without parole, Patricia and Raymond serving federal time for conspiracy and fraud. Officer Kelly had testified against them all in exchange for a reduced sentence, though he'd never work in law enforcement again. The corrupt networks they'd used to attack Vincent had been systematically exposed and dismantled. Tony entered the shop, carrying coffee and wearing the satisfaction of a job well done. The last of the appeals was denied, he reported. Rebecca's lawyer tried to claim ineffective counsel, but the judge wasn't buying it. Good, Vincent replied simply. He felt no joy in their destruction, only the cold satisfaction of justice served. Any regrets? Tony asked, studying his old friend's face. Vincent looked at Emma, who was showing Maria a drawing she'd made of their new family. Vincent, herself, Maria, and conspicuously absent figures who'd once been labeled Mommy, Grandma Pat, and Grandpa Ray. No, Vincent said finally. They chose to declare war on my family. I just finished what they started. Emma looked up from her drawing and smiled at him. The same bright, trusting smile she'd always had, unmarked by the trauma her mother's family had tried to inflict. Daddy, look, I drew us at the park. Vincent knelt down to examine the artwork, his heart full despite everything they'd endured. It's beautiful, sweetheart, just like our life is going to be. As evening fell over Denver, Vincent Torres, survivor, father, and protector, helped his daughter pack up her toys. The old Vincent, the dangerous one, was still there beneath the surface, ready to emerge if anyone ever threatened his family again. But for now, in the safety they'd built from the ashes of betrayal, he could simply be what Emma needed most, a father who kept his promises and never let the monsters win. The perfect betrayal had met its perfect match, and justice, though delayed, had finally come home. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen, and I'll see you there.